Hey, in this video, I'm going to break down my 4 keys to developing a great personal sound on your instrument. When most people hear about developing a personal sound, their mind goes right to tone, and that is definitely a very important piece of this, but it's not the whole story. So I'm going to break down how to get the complete package of a personal sound in this video using 4 key steps. My name is Michael, and I help saxophone players become confident improvisers. I've helped other instrumentalists as well, and you can find more about me in the description below. So let's dive into the 4 keys to developing a great personal sound on your instrument. So key number 1 is actually one of the easiest things that you can do as a musician, and that is to listen. Find your favorite players and really get their sound in your ear. Listening is a vitally important part of developing as a musician, no matter what kind of music genre you're operating in. For jazz musicians especially, developing a personal sound has always been at the core of what this music is all about. And to do that, you should listen to your favorite players and then find out who their favorite players were. For example, one of my favorite players is Lee Konitz, who was a huge fan of Charlie Parker and also Louis Armstrong and Johnny Hodges. Eventually, once your ear is developed enough and you've listened to enough content, you can start transcribing their melodies. I would go with melodies first if you're new to transcription, and solos. The benefit of transcribing actually isn't in the writing it down part, it's in the ear training part. So learning simple melodies at first by ear and learning to play them exactly as your favorite players did is a great way to take your first steps into the transcription process. And eventually you'll be ready to transcribe licks and full solos that your favorite players played. And you don't just want to emulate their tone, although that is important. You also want to capture their inflections. How did they articulate? How did they approach volume? What are the most subtle aspects of their playing, and how close can you get to copying that? Copying is important even though you're trying to develop your own thing. And step 1 is great because you can listen actively or passively, and even that passive listening progress is going to seep into your subconscious, and your favorite player's sounds are going to start coming out when you practice yourself. Key number 2 here is specific to practicing your instrument with tone exercises. If I only have time to do one thing in a practice session, it is usually dialing in my sound and making sure that it feels good to play my instrument. Even after 15 years of playing the saxophone, I still have good sound days and not so great sound days, but tone exercises help to keep that level. So I usually start my practice sessions with long tones, of which I have many exercises for, overtone work, which means bringing out notes in the harmonic series after a fundamental pitch, and technique work. Playing scales and developing a homogeneous sound up and down your instrument is a really important piece to making sure your tone is where you want it to be. At the beginning of this video, I mentioned that developing a personal sound wasn't just about tone, and I stand by that, but tone is obviously a huge part of this. Equipment can be a big hang-up for musicians, especially saxophone players, and I actually do advise trying as many different pieces of equipment as you can, but the equipment only makes it easier or harder to get that sound you hear in your head out on the instrument. So that's why listening was first and tone is second. Make sure you have a good sound in your ear, in your mind, so that you can be working toward shaping something specific during your tone practice. And step 3 is to improvise or to create on your instrument. There are a couple different ways I like to approach improvisation. Many of you may already be experienced improvisers, but I find the best way to actually get the sound that's in your head out on your instrument is to improvise with little to no structure, or in other words, improvise freely on your instrument. That means after you've done your long tones and your scales, you take just a couple minutes each practice session to just go where your ear takes you. True note to note patient improvisation can really help you think about what it is you're trying to express on your instrument. Of course, improvising on your favorite tunes can also be really helpful, and trying to improvise in the style of those favorite players that you were listening to back in step one is also a way to develop further and eventually get your own sound out on your instrument. If you're taking your first steps into improvisation on your instrument, try not to be so overwhelmed with notes and try to focus more on rhythm, playing one note at a time. It can be a chord tone or even just the root of the chord, or you can just start to embellish your favorite melodies if that's all you know how to do right now. I have another video called How to Learn a Jazz Tune the Right Way that I highly recommend if you're just starting out with improvisation. And finally, this one might surprise you, the fourth key to developing your own personal sound on your instrument is to compose. Even if you don't consider yourself a composer and you don't really have a goal to lead your own bands with your own original music, composition can be a great exercise to think more deeply about what it is you want to communicate with your music. A contrafact is a new melody written on an existing set of chord changes. The 12-bar blues or the 32-bar rhythm changes are two of the most common forms and chord progressions to write contrafacts on. So write a simple blues melody. You can also just write a melody without an existing set of chord changes. You don't have to worry about harmonizing that melody or making it a complete tune, but writing out melodies and learning to play them on your instrument is a simple way to start composing if you've never done it before. And again, I wrote in the style of down here because if you're really lost in the compositional process, you can take your favorite player or favorite composer and try to write something in that style using their melodies or chord progressions as a jumping off point. So just to review, the 4 keys to developing your own personal sound on your instrument are to first listen, then do lots of tone and technique exercises, then improvise in as many different ways as you can think of, and then compose just a little bit. Even if you're not considering yourself a composer, it can be a really helpful process. I hope this video was helpful to you. There's some more resources down in the description, including an opportunity for me to make you a customized practice routine, which many saxophone players have been taking advantage of lately. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.